Located just west of Bingen, Washington, Syncline is one of Portland's favorite places to go mountain biking and let their dogs terrorize nesting endangered birds while gaping at wide open views of Mosier and Hood River as ticks crawl up their legs and burrow into their inner thighs. They'll discover how much poison oak their off-leash dogs just ran through when they get home. Syncline is often one of the only places left rideable during the fall, winter, and early spring seasons that's within a 2-hour drive of Portland. Paradoxically, it's also often one of the first places to succumb to frost heaves, low elevation snow, and howling winds. Always check the weather for Bingen, Washington before leaving for your trip. Pay close attention to the wind speed. It matters here. If it's over 15 miles an hour, you're going to have trouble staying upright on your bike, and you'll be better off on the other side of the gorge. Also, avoid if it's been freezing for a while. This place is an awful mess when it's muddy. Syncline has to have one of the least creative names for a recreational area ever. It is literally named after the type of geological feature it sits on. A syncline is a fold of rock where the younger layers are toward the center, so this trail system mostly sits in a fold of rock. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes to get to Syncline from the Portland area. You cross the $1 toll bridge at Hood River and then turn right until you see the first parking area. On a nice day, that parking area will be full. There is another parking area about a half-mile east of the main parking area. Park there if other one's too full or crowded. Starting from either parking area, all the trailheads in this system start from the same decommissioned segment of Highway 14. If you start in the east parking area, you get to cross a pretty cool waterfall on your way to the trailheads. There are 2 places to start climbing. One is Little Maui, and the other is Old Ranch Road. Old Ranch Road is the easiest climb and perhaps represents one of the best features of this trail system, which is that it's eminently climbable and descendable. There is something here for everyone, beginner to expert. Even better, aside from Little Moab, the expert sections don't really start until the top part of the mountain. Climb either Little Maui if you want a challenging climb, or Old Ranch Road if you want an easy climb. There will be a lot of switchbacks, and the dominant surface is mineral dirt and volcanic basalt. Syncline is a novelty for the western part of Oregon and Washington. It's right on the dividing line in the gorge between the rainforest to the west and the desert to the east. It's right where you first start feeling moisture in the air as you're driving west to Portland. It's the closest open meadow you can ride to Portland, basically the farthest west you can ride without being in the trees. And although it might sound ridiculous to a desert dweller, but for those of us who live west of the Cascades, it's nice to be able to ride a trail system that's not buried in tree cover. The lack of tree cover provides commanding and inspiring views of the gorge, of Hood River, and the bustling metropolis of Mosier directly across the river. On a clear day, there are views of Mount Hood and bucolic scenes of wineries and orchards on the Oregon side of the river. The top of Little Maui intersects with Old Ranch Road. If you're a beginner, you should have climbed Old Ranch Road, and now you can ride down Little Maui. There are some sections on Maui that will require a beginner to get off their bike, but everything is walkable, and the pain will be minimal. Maui is the perfect beginner to intermediate downhill trail. It's just enough challenge with the right diversity of rock and dirt features without any overwhelming challenges. You're in control of the risk factor on this section of trail. It's a great place to learn to ride under tree branches and overexposed rock. It's a great place to progress, especially if you're on your first full suspension bike. If you're not a beginner, you may have climbed Little Maui, which is a great trail to work on your climbing chops as well as descending. Either way, whether you climbed Little Maui or Old Ranch, you've arrived at a 4-way intersection on the other side of a fence halfway up the hill. If the river is on your right, the trail going uphill to your left is the continuation of Old Ranch Road. If you're planning on getting a couple thousand feet of elevation in today, go that way. Climb it and follow the signs until you get to the one that says Coyote Wall Cutoff. If you just want to ride over to Coyote Wall now and call it a day at 1,400 feet of climbing, go left. To climb to the top, go right. Keep climbing and you'll see a residence at the top of the hill with a sign asking you very politely not to trespass. If you go right, you'll see a connector trail veering to the left and following a steep and punchy climb up to a road. When you get to that road, turn right. You're on someone's driveway. Proceed a quarter mile up to the next road. You'll get to another road. Turn left. keep riding that road. You'll feel like you're trespassing on someone's property here, but don't worry. Just stay on the most rugged road and keep climbing. At the little creek that crosses the road, keep climbing again, and eventually you'll see the signs telling you you've reached the Coyote Wall trailhead. This is the time to put on the knee pads and chin bar because the descent starts here and doesn't stop until you get to the river. Coyote Wall Trail hugs the edge of Coyote Wall, which is a wall of basalt cliff edge that looks to be around 300 feet tall or something. It adds some drama to the ride since it's all exposure. You'll pass the lunch tree right after dropping out of the trees and right before getting to the real exposure. It never fails that right after getting past the lunch tree, there are hikers with dogs off leash everywhere. Be careful. As much as you'll want to, this isn't an area you can just bomb around blind corners. There's nowhere to bail except a 300-foot cliff with jagged rocks and ponderosa pine at the bottom. Once past the scariest of the exposure sections, the trail pulls back from the cliff edge a little bit, and then it gets fast and open. Switchbacks have been added to try to mitigate the brake burning, but they've gotten trenched out from too much love. Keep following Coyote Wall down until you cross the fence line again and end up back at the top of Little Maui. If you're looking down slope and the river is in front of you, turn right. It's not marked, and it's not even obvious it's there, but just a little bit to the west is the top of the best downhill section of trail in the whole system. It's called Little Moab because it's all exposed rock and ledges and chunder. It's actually a bit more technical than most of the real Moab because this is volcanic basalt, not sandstone, and the two surfaces are not equivalent. The sandstone in Moab generally has good traction and is eroded into polite, rounded profiles. The basalt at Syncline affords somewhat less traction and breaks into sharp angles that are only lightly eroded. It catches the wheels of both unsuspecting and vigilant riders. It's also a lot of fun. Just like on Slick Rock, the best way to conquer Little Moab is to keep your speed up while keeping an eye out for hikers and their dogs. This trail is steep and unforgiving, with line choices ranging from epic to nearly impossible. It's over fast. It feels like you've gotten to the bottom in no time, which is why once you've reached the bottom of Little Moab, you're supposed to climb Old Ranch Road again and do it a second time. It's also okay to ride Little Maui to the bottom, if you're a baby. If you're not riding Little Moab, the rest of the Syncline system is entirely hardtail friendly, adding to its appeal for beginner to intermediate riders. If you want an even bigger challenge, I wouldn't hesitate to ride a fully rigid up Old Ranch Road to the Coyote Wall Traverse and back down to Little Maui. It would make for a rowdy descent. But in general, this is a trail system made for a 120mm full suspension bike, unless you're planning on riding from the top or riding Little Moab, in which case I'd recommend a 160mm bike. I should also mention that it is possible to shuttle this system. Atwood Road meets SR14 right at the west parking area. Drive up Atwood until you get to a wide spot where you can't drive any farther, and ride down to the trailhead from there. I frequently see downhill guys here, so I know it's possible. Just bear in mind that parking is limited and Atwood is a residential road, so you may run afoul of some people's sensibilities. Be respectful. Be thoughtful. This is another good riding option for the Portland area. It's close and it's reasonably diverse. Put it on your list and go ride your bike.